Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to try to do something recycling that has information, and to me I find it a lot of fun. We're going to be making fire starter candles. Little homemade things that'll help you put underneath the fire, underneath the wood, that'll get it started, and hopefully with one match you can call yourself a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. So we're going to be using recycled wax, which I have plenty of. That's part of the recycling part of this, and hopefully reclaim these glass containers for other stylish candles later. Going to be using cotton wicks. Again, I have a whole roll of it here, which we'll be cutting off and then using and laying into these waxen paper cups, which will fill in the wax and everything. We'll lay those in there and then fill them up with some filler with some wood chips that I've gotten as I planed this workbench top. So I think that's where we're going to go today, and let's get started. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to prepare our containers first, or cups that'll hold these in. These little wax paper cups. We're going to lay out 16 of them. Get that a little better centered in our shot here. Speed this up, of course, with a little bit of happy music, so that I know this may get tedious, but you know, hey, it's part of what you got to do. Now, after I get these laid out, we're going to lay in the wicks. Now, the wicks, again, I pre-cut a bunch of these, roughly about 3 inches or so, and they just need to lay in there with a little bit sticking out. Now, again, we'll adjust these after we get the filling in, because some of these are going to be, because of my impreciseness, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. Again, this is not precise work. There's nothing in here that has to be absolutely perfect, because in the end of the day, you're going to burn them up. And hopefully, and as we fill these in, see, that one's a little short, and we'll adjust that after we get the wood chips in there. And just for grins, I'm one short on what I had cut, so we'll take a little bit of this, measure out precisely about 3 inches or so, and lay that in. So now we add our wood chips. Again, got a whole bucket of them over here in the famous blue bucket. Once we pour the wax into these cups, the wood chips themselves will settle down, and of course they'll absorb some of the wax, which will help with the burning. And I will say that the wood chips are not absolutely necessary for what we're doing today, but I think they add a little bit of a little niceness to the starter stuff. And if you want to give them away as gifts, as Christmas gifts, or one of those utilitarian things that everybody who lives in the northern climes, or even the southern climes, that likes to have a little fireplace. And we'll clean these up here in a bit, but I'll probably fast forward through some of this. Pull this wick out a bit that I had buried in there. But again, only a little bit of it needs to really be sticking out. Use as little or as much as you'd like. good part about this, once the wick gets started, it'll also help burn the wax paper. Adjust some of these wicks so they're sticking out a little better. Okay, so next we'll move on to the preparation of the reclaiming of the wax. Okay, so now we're going to prepare the reclaimed wax. Again, I have plenty of wax here that I'm going to try to pull out of these containers. Different sizes, different types. As you can see, there's still old wicks in the bottom of it, which we'll need to filter out. So to get that started, we're going to use just a household kind of a melting pot. Turn that on, set that on kind of a medium for now. I'm going to take some of the smaller ones and lay them in there. Again, this is just going to melt the wax, and we're going to take and then pour that into our pour pitcher here, which I'm going to prepare with some cheesecloth. Now the cheesecloth here is to filter out any of the impurities and things like that. And again, we don't need a whole bunch, just enough to cover the top. So, pair of scissors. Get it, kind of eyeball it here. And then with a rubber band, this becomes kind of more of a filter for us. So with a rubber band, we're going to take and then give it a little bit of tightness and hold it in place while we pour the wax over it. Okay, while this is melting, we will take it and move this into a stop frame so that you don't have to sit here and watch everything. Take care. Okay, so now we've got most of the wax melted. We'll pull these last little two out now that they're pretty much done. There's a big chunk in that one, but we'll deal with that in a minute. As you can see, as I poured out the wax, some of the debris had been picked up, and the cheesecloth really helped filter most of that out. Again, personal preference, again, pour this carefully over the cheesecloth on that piece, and then we'll just set it aside here for now. Now there's a chunk of that one left, and we'll just grab that off the cheesecloth when we're done. The first thing we'll do is turn off the pot here and unplug it. Now unplugged. And we'll pour this last little bit over the cheesecloth and recapture that. As you can see, there's a chunk there that's left on that, which we'll grab and put onto the put into the rest of the pot. Okay, so as I pull the cheesecloth off of this carefully, you'll see that it looks like we may have, I don't know, I wasn't sure how much we were going to get, but it looks like we got 10, 12, maybe as much as 16 ounces, which we may not need all of this for the pour. Add a little bit more water to our, because I do want to heat this up again, just to keep it warm. Again, plug it back in, turn it on high, grab our little chunk that was left over. Put this back on the water just to keep it warm and let it finish doing its thing. And once this heats up again, we'll move over to the pour table. So will join me over there. Okay, so now back on the pour table, I've taken them and put a paper towel under them to catch any errant wax that will go in. And just for information, I'm reheating the wax over here in the pour thing, and it's currently sitting at 149 degrees, which is a good pour temperature. So here we go. Again, turn off the little oven thing, and let's see how far we get with this wax. We may get a little further than I thought, but here we go. So we'll start at this end. You see how it absorbs some of the wax into the chips there. Oh, I don't know, we probably won't get all 16 of these, but we'll see how far we get. Again, I'm pouring at about 150 degrees on the wax, so it's not too hot, and it should set fairly quickly. Nice burgundy color with the mixture of the reclaimed stuff. And looks like that's going to be about it. So that looks like that's about all of the wax that we're going to get out of it. Okay, so let's put you back in time-lapse mode, and we'll let these set, and I'll clean up what's left over, and we'll go from there. Okay, so it's been several hours since we've done the pour, and as you can see, these have set up rather nicely. A little texture there going on. One thing to be aware of, since these are wax cups, and when you do the pour, it does kind of melt the wax, and there's some seepage through here, but then that sets up real nice, you know, and these, so you can see the little part there, but these are very, very nice. A little bit of texture. Even the one that got a little bit of pour, you know, the wood filings are in there and nice and set. It will burn just fine, probably quicker than the others, but, and there we go. Well, thank you for coming along on this journey. Hope you've enjoyed the adventures in candle making today. Please stay tuned. Hopefully there'll be some kind of something showing up soon. Really enjoyed doing this for you. Hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.